Guys, let's learn from this. We need anybody who's watching this to hit like if they've gotten that question asked. So 3 things we're going to talk about. Why is protein such a buzzword? Why do you have protein in everything? Why am I buying a chocolate bar and they've added protein to it? We're going to talk about how we kind of ignore all other nutrients. And then we're going to talk about some actual factuals about protein. If you head on over to nutritionfacts.org, Dr. Greger does a great explanation of sort of the history, why protein got put into marketing and media so much and in such a short period of time that it became very common.
That whole thing at men eat meat.
Exactly. Protein is something that when added to like a fad diet, no one's restricting you on protein. You're much more likely to go towards this diet because it's not restrictive. It's not counting calories. It's not cutting carbs. It's not doing X, Y, and Z. It's like each protein. Protein's great. Add protein to everything. I went through a day, sort of a day in the life of how to get all your protein. So you can punch in your numbers, your weight, your height, and you can get a general idea of how much protein you should have. But for me, per this calculator, I should be eating about 49 grams of protein a day. So I went through a typical day and I tracked how much protein and where it came from and the sources and things like that. And at the end of the day, and really not eating anything out of the norm, I actually ended up with 52. So I went 3 over grams of protein. So you can see as you go through a day, you're going to hit your protein needs without needing meat or dairy. When somebody asks somebody, where do you get your protein? You can say, I actually get my protein from the same place that you get your protein, only mine hasn't been digested by somebody else. And what I mean by that is the cow that somebody eats was raised on plants, because plants have proteins. They're really like the best source for protein. So all those animals that people eat grew up and were raised eating plants. Another thing about the plants that especially the animals on factory farms are being fed, they are primarily being fed GMO corn or soybean, as well as a cocktail of antibiotics. So if you want to get the best source of protein, we probably want to leave some of those things out and just go straight to the actual like natural source of protein, which is your plant-based foods. So like broccoli, kale, whole grains, things like that. Another big thing to consider is when you look at your source of protein, as long as they're coming from plants, they're not being paired with cholesterol. What you're not going to find if you're getting your protein from meat, from animals, or from dairy is you're not going to find any fiber. Unfortunately, 97% of Americans are deficient in fiber. So it's much more alarming that we don't talk about that. We shouldn't have protein as our buzzword when really fiber and a variety of other nutrients are what we're most deficient in.
What I like to encourage people to think about, whether or not you are ready to transition to a full vegan or plant-based diet, is to just expand your idea of what protein means and where it can come from. Peanut butter with banana on it, or like you said, Robin, all food that grows from the ground has protein. So you don't have to think it has to just be this Atkins diet bacon cheeseburger with no bun. We all know in our hearts that something is wrong with that picture. Yeah. You and I did a seminar that people can purchase, and we'll put the link in the description. We called it, Is That Bird Food? And we debunked all these myths around sort of scary plant-based food. And one of the things we talk about also is this myth around carbs being bad. And we talk about ways to prep plant-based protein, and it's just chock full of information like this and videos.
Actually, let's give a shout out to some of the best protein sources: quinoa, peas, peanut butter, kale, chickpeas, tofu, beans, and broccoli. So quinoa is considered a complete protein, which means it has all 9 essential amino acids. Since we've been upping our protein from animal products consumption, our life expectancy has decreased. But when people do the research to figure out what did our ancestors truly eat, especially when you want to start talking about like paleo, they were eating over 100 grams of fiber a day, right? And the majority of that, all of it, had to come from plants. They also literally had to like hunt and hand-to-hand combat with their food. So it was a bit more strenuous, and it was less likely to happen every day. It wasn't like a drive-through line. This was like a big event to get your meat. When you look at the food for babies, so especially human babies, breast milk is literally designed for the baby. It comes from the mother, goes straight to the baby. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to breastfeed, great. It has the least amount of protein compared to any other mammal.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of shows you right out the gate that our little bodies are not meant to be like pushed with this huge amount of protein, that we're not designed for that. It's just enough to make us grow, but we need all these other things as well.